Did you know that if the kinetic energy generated by the wind every 24 hours could be converted into electricity, the entire world would have 30 times more electricity than the entire human race consumes in a day? But this energy is not like coal or mineral oil, which does not pollute our environment. Wind energy is completely renewable or green energy. But the question is, how can we use the infinite energy in the air? The principle is very simple. By attaching large blades to a rotor on a pole, we can convert the kinetic energy of the wind into rotational energy. In ancient times it was used to grind grain and draw water, and now we use rotational energy to turn any generator, from which we will get electricity. So converting the kinetic energy of wind into rotational energy and using that rotational energy is the main function of the windmill. Let's try to understand how the wind turbine works. First of all, we need to know how wind turbines are made in a particular location. Since its structures are very high, their foundations have to be very strong. The towers attached to wind turbines are not solid towers. There is a gap between them. The tower has to be divided into small pots, and its height is increased by placing one on top of the other. Another big reason for keeping wind turbines hollow is that electricity cables can be run through the tower itself, and after electricity is generated on top of the turbine, electricity can be collected through those cables, and it doesn't damage the cables. Another thing is that stairs are made inside the hollow turbine. If there is any problem or need somewhere on top of the turbine, then you can go up through the stairs built inside the hollow tower. Now the question is, how high are these turbines? When we say tower, we usually think of a mobile tower. Suppose if a mobile tower has to be built from the ground, then its height is made much higher. If the tower is installed on the roof of a tall building, then there is no need to build such a tall tower. Similarly, if wind turbines are to be installed on plains, the height of the tower will be much higher. In the same way, even if the height of the tower is kept low, if it is installed in a hilly area, it will go away. So it is seen that the height can be from 80 meters to 120 meters. The hub and blades are mounted on the top of the wind turbine tower. These blades of wind turbine look very small from a distance, but these blades are actually huge. Typically a single blade can be roughly 50 meters long. 50 meters is roughly 150 feet, meaning a wind turbine blade is taller than a 10-12-story building. Transporting these blades to the turbine is also a very difficult task and requires the use of a special type of truck. We call the rotor a rotor hub with which the huge blades are attached. Now suppose those blades are attached to the hub in the wind turbine, but the problem is that no one can decide when the wind will blow at what speed. And no one can even decide which way the wind will blow. Again, after converting the kinetic energy into rotation energy, electricity has to be generated from it. So to control and manage all this completely, there is a square part above the turbine which is called the nacelle of the turbine. Now the generator and all the most important components are installed inside this nacelle. The nacelle looks very small from a distance, but it is not small, but the size of a 2 to 3 room house. Now the main things that are in this nacelle are the brake of the wind turbine gear and the generator. You may ask if there is a need to put gears in the turbine again. Look at everyone who has ridden a bicycle. Once you notice that the gear that is attached to the bicycle pedal is very big and the gear that is attached to the rear wheel is very small. So what happens is that turning the pedal once causes the rear wheel to turn many times. In the same way, the gearbox installed in the turbine works at a ratio of approximately only 100 or more. That means if the turbine blade rotates once, it internally rotates more than 100 times. Therefore, if a windmill seems to be spinning very slowly, how much electricity can be generated from it? But that's not the case. Even though it's spinning slowly, the generator inside is spinning at a very high speed. Now the thing is that the speed of the wind is not always the same, and it can increase, and if the speed increases, then the blades of the turbine will rotate at a very fast speed, and it can cause a big problem, and for this there is a break inside it. And what happens next? Regardless of the speed at which the wind turbine rotates, the internal gearbox and brake always keep the generator under control. So by installing all these components, we have controlled the wind speed, but we have to control which direction the wind is blowing. So an anemometer is installed on top of the wind turbine to determine which direction the wind is blowing. An anemometer, you may have seen that there are 4 rods and each rod has a bowl-like thing attached to it. It rotates and can detect which direction the wind is blowing and what is the speed of the wind. Now the complete wind turbine message is all placed on a wheel, and by controlling this will the sensor of the anemometer, regardless of the direction of the wind flow. The sensor of the anemometer rotates the wheel and turns the entire wind turbine. So this complete wind turbine is placed on, or you can say the system which fixes the direction of this wind turbine is called YOMO system of wind turbine. Now, by installing all these systems, the wind turbine can do its work very relaxed, regardless of the direction of the wind flow, regardless of the wind speed. Now the electricity that will be generated with the help of the turbine comes to a transformer under the turbine with the help of a cable. After coming to the transformer, the voltage of that electricity is increased and transferred to the substation. A wind turbine costs a lot to set up, but the electricity that is obtained from it is completely clean or green energy. And one more thing, although the initial cost is high, it does not have to be maintained, and there is no extra cost to generate electricity from it. In this case, coal or mineral oil must always be used for thermal power. It means that in that case it takes a lot of time to operate the thermal power plant. Another problem is that wind turbines cannot be installed everywhere. Wind turbines should be installed in places where there is continuous airflow. You may have seen many videos of wind turbines catching fire. In fact, sometimes when the wind blows, if the internal brake stops working, the generator inside the wind turbine can burn. Due to this, such minor accidents happen, but it is very rare. Comment how you like this video and don't ask to share it with other friends. If you are new to the channel, please press the subscribe button. Thank you so much for subscribing. See you again today in another video.